You will not be a top 1% earner with a middle class mindset. And the same thing goes, without being said, with a broke mindset as well. But the middle class mindset is the tricky thing. You know, a lot of the advice you might see from someone like Dave Ramsey may help you at a neutral standpoint. Allegedly, I'm not covering, from what I know of his teachings, it'll get you to a neutral standpoint, but it's not going to help you build wealth where you can retire off that money, so to speak. And I'm talking about millions of dollars in an investment account, paying out dividends, things like that. I grew up in a middle-class family. I laugh when I say that. Shout out to Madam President Kamala Harris. I grew up in a middle-class family, all right? And let me tell you, I know what it's like to be a regular American. But I recently, after the 2020s, we've entered the 1% wealth bracket. And in our lower years since 2020, I would say it's in the top 2% wealth bracket. Just to be specific, we made $2.5 million plus in the business in the last 3.5 to 4 years. So, you know, that's been great. My investments accounts have been growing, but I had to detach from the middle class mindset in order to do so. And this is not me trashing my upbringing by any stretch of the imagination, because there's a lot of great fundamental things that I learned, but there was also things and scarcity patterns that I had to unlearn. Now, in ways, I am privileged to live in a middle class, to grow up in a middle class family, because my dad taught me how to save money. He introduced me to the stock market. And as a young kid, I had like a mini savings account, and I was taught about building interest. Now, as you grow older, you might come to see that interest in savings account ain't shit unless it's a high yield savings account. And even then, there's bigger opportunities out there that you don't want to keep all your money in a high yield savings account. But it's better. But I digress. I didn't live a perfect life growing up. My mom was an alcoholic. It was a very dysfunctional family at times. But what I can say is that as a family, being a member of that family, I never had to fear not having food on my plate. I never had to fear us losing the family household and things like that. And my dad was very responsible with his money. Now, as I grew up in my 20s, I thought it would be a wise decision to buy a starter home in Baltimore City, a $97,000 home. Decent, I would say it was a safe neighborhood, but not a very clean neighborhood. So it was like, okay, pretty good for a starter home and whatnot. And then from there, I made decisions to take risk in business. And within 5 years, I lost that home and went through a bankruptcy because I spent way beyond my means in investing in myself. And that is part of what I want to share in my promotion to manifest and multiply, to learn the pitfalls of wealth building that maybe I didn't have to go through, but also there was lessons in that experience, so to speak. And one of those lessons was I finally experienced what it was like to be completely broke. I mean, bank account in the red. I mean, being in a space where I was grateful to buy a ho-ho from 7-Eleven. I didn't really eat ho-hos, okay? It wasn't, I don't got love for the ho-hos. Like Snoop Dogg said in 94, we don't love them ho-hos. But, you know, buying a coffee from 7-Eleven, or, you know, sometimes just enjoying, a comfort food, so to speak. That's where I was at. Like, my bank account was in the red, and it was just a blessing when it was in the green if I didn't shut off the bank account. So I experienced financial turmoil in my path to bankruptcy and my path to experiencing foreclosure in my starter home. And also I kind of questioned the whole aspect of people rushing to buy a home anyway. I honestly probably should have been renting, but I thought it was a smart decision at the time to buy a home. But we can cover that in a whole separate video. I can go on to renting versus buying and all that stuff. We'll start here. we're going to stay on topic to the difference of middle class thinking and upper class thinking or 1% thinking. So in that, a lot of the old me had to dissolve. My middle class thinking dissolved in that moment, going through financial hardships. And what I mean by that is, I remember the first time I was like late on my mortgage. And I remember the first time where I was late on my electric bill. And I thought, oh my God, like my mind was painting a picture that they are going to haul my ass off to jail for not keeping up with my taxes, for not keeping up with my bills, and all that other stuff. And granted, it's not a good thing to not be able to pay for stuff, right? To be on empty. But I realized that the world gives you a lot more grace than is advertised, and especially that was promoted, the ideology that was promoted in my family, so to speak. I didn't experience crazy financial hardship growing up, and that's definitely something to be grateful for. But what I noticed is my dad would really, if he had a mental lapse, so to speak, and he paid the electric bill a few days late, he thought, his mindset was like, oh no, they're going to turn our power off and kick us out of the house and all. Like, he had a huge fear around that, like he did something wrong. There was a big internal punishment to that. So lo and behold, when I grow up and I just don't have the money to pay for the cable bill or the electric bill or something like that, my mind was in flight or fight. And I was like, I don't know what to. So basically, essentially in this moment, I had to let the old part of me dissolve in order to bring abundance in. Now, I am not saying this as advice of like, hey, you want to get rich? Go through bankruptcy. Go through bankruptcy and lose your house, all right? And that's going to fix your money mindset. No, that's not the case, but it was a spiritual experience for me. And if you're going through it, it could be helpful. But hopefully you can take what I've learned from that and apply it rather than having to live through that entire experience. So what I really learned through that is that, it's not as emotional that it has to be. Like a bankruptcy or financial hardship does not have to come with as much shame as we carry with it. And that's what I learned. I learned to love myself through that process, even so much so that I never asked my dad for help in that moment. And then when I finally let go of my house, went through the bankruptcy, and I was living still in and out of Airbnb, so I still was providing for myself at that time, I finally told him, look, I went through some financial things, but I'm all right now and I'm on the up and up. But I just wanted to let you know that to dissolve the shame, because I felt like I was holding in a lot of shame. And the biggest shame was, what if my dad found out about how I failed in life, so to speak? And the conversation went a lot easier than I thought. So through that experience, fast forward to 2020, 2021, we start getting successful in business. And, I didn't meet my wife rich. She had her own financial problems. She was in a debt resettlement and whatnot. But we had different puzzle pieces for each other. So it was beautiful. We were both entrepreneurs, both business owners, and we both had gifts to give each other while merging together in a relationship, so to speak. And it's such a beautiful thing how we really helped each other from the lessons that we both learned, right? So after 2020, things were financially good. 2021, we had about $650K a month. $650K a year, but first 100K a month. And then 2022, $750K a year. 2023, $1 million a year. And then 2024, $400K a year. And I say all that because that's another thing that I want to state here. Something that I learned in my middle class family is we don't talk about finances, right? And I see a plus to that. I see a plus to that, but also I would also say that there is benefit to being open about money. And when I raise a family, I want to be a little more open about that. Maybe there's things that aren't said, but I want to teach my family the ins and outs about money mindset. And I think that's important. I think when there's so much secrecy around money, it creates this internal shame, and then you can't truly grow and you can't truly learn from people, right? If we're all open about all the inner money stuff, like what really helped me when I was going through bankruptcy is people being open about their experiences. That helped me, saying like, oh, I'm not alone in this, right? So if we're all open and we're exchanging notes, we can all grow together. So that's how I think about that. Let's see. This is my first time doing a YouTube video. It's getting a little darker. We're gonna move this over here because I think the sun is coming out. I love the view, but the sun's coming out and I think this is a better view now. So you can see the 4K sweat pores on my face. So from then on, I've had investing knowledge. I've learned about investing and whatnot. And, I can cover this in multiple videos. But for instance, my main portfolio, I multiplied the money. And it was around 30K in 2023, 150K now because of smart investments. You don't make that type of money by stashing it in a savings account, right? So there's so much opportunity out there where I feel like the shit that I learned in economy class in like 12th or 11th grade, it was like, put your money in a CD and it'll grow. Yeah, it'll grow like that's bad advice, dude. Like what, it's gonna grow 3% over 5 years? Or whatever it is, or put your money in the money market because it's safe, man. And I disagree with a lot of that. I've put my money into growth stocks. That makes sense. There's always a risk to investing, but I win like 95% of the time, and it's not like reckless gambling, right? It's not like just throwing money on the table and gambling on some fart coin or some shit like that. So I got a solid investing plan and I'm very patient with my investing and all that. I digress. Let's get back to the middle class thinking and the upper class thinking when you're sipping champagne and shit. So really, middle class thinking is still stuck in that rat race where it's like, I'm worried about losing benefits. I'm worried about losing health insurance. I'm worried about like whatever the system told me that is safe. And I just think differently. This might be controversial. I haven't had health insurance because everything was more expensive when I was on it. And it's like, if anything happens, the money I invest in the market makes me more money than if I were paying $500 a month into health insurance. $500 in the market makes me more money. Now, that's not advice for everybody. This isn't financial advice. That's not advice for everybody, but that's just interesting, a shift from thinking outside of the matrix. And I plan on getting my wife pregnant soon, and health insurance might be a very good investment in that because that can get expensive. So I'm not all anti-health insurance. I invest in health insurance. But it's like this mindset of like, if I lose my job, I'll lose the benefits, right? Or I'll just invest in my 401k and I'm not going to pay attention to it, but that's what the people say to do. Or I'll just rely on Social Security. All of that is middle class thinking. Or I'll stash everything in the savings account for a rainy day. And yes, you do want savings to protect your investments in case there is an emergency, but that shouldn't be your primary plan. Your primary plan is to be a bit more aggressive and growing with your money. When I say aggressive, I don't mean reckless. I just mean that you're giving your money an opportunity to grow and to be able to offset inflation. Because if you have your money in a savings account, you're losing money from inflation. Your money is devaluing over time. So you need to do something to increase the value of the money that you're holding. And what I like to do is I like to put money in, multiply my money to fight both inflation, but also gain a profit off of holding my money and being a smart investor and learning that. So, I would say a big thing, the big difference, a 1% earner is not reckless with their money, like some people may say. There's a lot of money coaches out there that tell you to be reckless. They're not reckless with their money. They don't go beyond their means. They don't always invest on their edge into coaching. That's what I've seen in the coaching space. Yes, you may invest on your edge, but investing giving you a clear ROI every month, fine, that's cool. But if you're investing on your edge to the point where you're in survival mode, that isn't cool. You know, people in the 1% invest aggressively, smartly, intelligently, and don't only rely on a rainy day. They know how money works. And I want to say this, like, a lot of props to my pops. A lot of props to my pops and the things I learned from my dad growing up in a middle-class family, because I'm a normal American like all of you. But I would say some of the information is outdated from what I learned as a kid, to just put it in a savings account. But the reason for that is because money became a currency. It went off the gold standard. And, you know, there was a time where saving your money was a smart move, right? So it's not bad advice, it's just outdated advice. I mean, technically it's bad advice now, but it's outdated. A lot of people you learn from is outdated advice. You know, buying a starter home, your home is not an investment. We can get into that later, you know, in a different video, because I'll go on and on about it. But that's advice that worked in the 50s. And yes, real estate can be a good investment. There's just more to it, right? There's just, you know, you probably shouldn't rely on your primary residence as a main investment. So there's different ways of thinking, and I'm going to end that here. I will extend more into my thinking, and comment below of what you think and what comes up for you when I share all this. And I'm glad to add on to this in multiple videos. And also, if you like what I'm saying and you want to learn from me when it comes to building wealth, investing, and learning the psychology of money, and also multiplying the money that comes in, join my program, Manifest and Multiply. You can find the link in the description below. Like and subscribe this video. This is my first YouTube video, so thank you for being here for the first video. Not my first ever video, but the first video on this channel. Peace out, everybody.